What is going on, everybody? It is your boy JB, also known as Slack. In today's video, we're going to be making a CDL tier list heading into Major 2 in Minnesota coming up this weekend. Alrighty, let's get started in the video. First and most importantly, we're going to start with S tier and work all the way down to D tier based on performance. Again, this is my personal opinion on how the teams have been performing throughout the majors so far in the online qualifiers. So the best team in the entirety of the game right now, I think, based on Major 1 performance and how they performed, they obviously won the entire tournament. They're 5-0 going into the Major 2 in Minnesota this weekend. I think they've been the best team so far in this game overall. I got Optic Texas. They're number 1 on the tier list for me. I think, like I said, they've been performing so well across the board. You talk about Dashy, he's in form, probably the best player in the entire game right now. Shotzi and Scump have looked incredible. Other than their flex and the X Factor Illy has looked absolutely amazing. So these guys are the number 1 team for me going into the major this weekend. I think they're the fan favorite to win, and I think they rightfully deserve all the gas that they've been given so far. They're going to have a tricky road ahead of them throughout the bracket, so they're going to run onto phase early on in the tournament, but I think they are the fan favorite going in, and like I said, they definitely deserve the gas so far. So they're the number 1 team on the CDL tier list for me. Then the number 2 team right behind them, I think this is the S tier is pretty easy, and after this it gets kind of tricky. I got Atlanta FaZe. I think both of these teams are the best teams in the entire game, and when they're going to be battling it about all season long, playing against each other, it's going to be crazy series. I think both of these teams also do a really good job of handling business, and what I mean by that is whenever they play any team from A to D, they always handle it. Like, they have no problems winning the series. Even if it's a hairy one, they always clutch up. They don't really lose to the lesser teams, and they've been performing really well thus far into the season this year of the CDL. So those are going to be both my number 1 and number 2. And like I said, this is where it starts to get a little bit tricky just because of some of these teams' performances. At the top of the A tier, I'm going to go ahead and put London Royal Ravens. These guys have really only lost to the top dogs, and they've continued to impress with Gizmo being back up in the lineup. They've gotten a lot of practice under their belt, and I think the way they performed at Major 1 on LAN, they only fell short, like I said, to really the top dogs in Atlanta and Optic. So I'm excited to see what they can do at this major. I think they've gotten a lot more practice with their entirety of their roster. A lot of people don't really know how these guys play. They're fairly new to the league. Gizmo and Nasty, 2 new young rookies coming into the scene. And then you have Afro, who's been playing amazing, and Trey Zero is their quarterback in the AR. He's been playing it lights out. So they're going to be top 3 team for me heading into this major, and I think through the online qualifiers, this is perfectly fair to say. I think these 3 teams are really like the best in my opinion, but I think that London is just behind Optic and FaZe when it comes to just overall performance thus far into the league, and that's why I got them as the 3rd team heading into the Major 2 this weekend. For the 4th team, this is where it gets really weird, and I think there's a lot of questions about this, but I'm going to go Boston Breach here. I think Boston Breach has looked really well throughout these online qualifiers thus far. They went 4-1 over the stage, with their only loss being to the London Royal Ravens. Yes, they played lesser matches, but with the underperformance out of LA Thieves and Toronto Ultra, I have them sitting at 4th place going into the major, and I think they have some good easy round 1 matchups coming up this weekend that they should be able to handle business and make a little bit of a run into the tournament. This is going to be my top 4 so far heading into Major 2. And this is really, for me, where it gets really weird because we've seen some performance boosts in New York, and I want to give them credit where credit is due, but we also haven't seen enough individual performance. So I'm going to go ahead and iron out the bottom part of the league right now. I think the worst team right now in heading into the major, unfortunately, is going to be the Paris Legion. I think they have not looked good thus far this season. They've had some shaky games where they've went all the way to map 5, but they've continued to lose them. They're a fairly new team with the roster addition to Jimbo, and they have Jimbo and Tom Gravity, who are 2 guys coming up through the amateur scene this year, getting kind of their first footing into the league. I think they're a good team, and they can potentially make a run in the tournament depending on who they play, but right now I think they are the worst team heading into the major, and I think it's fair to say from their shaky starts. This is where it gets, like I said, very interesting. The middle of the pack, it's kind of who you put in the A, B tier. I'm going to go ahead and throw Toronto Ultra, I think, in the 5th team. For me, I think Toronto Ultra is a very good team, and back-to-back weekends thus far in the CDL Major 2 qualifiers. They've had Kleenex, who was out with COVID, and then Bance out with COVID. So they haven't had their players at a 100%. They've had a lot of different things that have been going on behind the scenes and whatnot that they can't deal with, like sickness. It's something you just can't expect to happen, and unfortunately it's just been happening to them. I think this team is solid. The biggest concern for me is that they got to figure out hardpoint when they're playing against the top dog teams. You're not going to be able to guarantee yourself a loss in every hardpoint map. So I got Toronto Ultra sitting right there. And I think it's a fair spot to put them in my opinion. The team that I'll kind of start to iron out as well is the Florida Mutineers, right? I think these guys are a solid team, and I think they would handle business versus most of these teams, maybe other than New York. But it's going to be an interesting to see them kind of perform at this tournament this weekend, see if they can finally put all the pieces together and if they can get a good result, because they've had some shaky matchups, that's for sure. And something I also want to point out too is these guys have started in losers of majority of the tournaments, so we've never really seen them make a deep run into a tournament. So I'm going to put Florida Mutineers, in my opinion, in the A tier. I think these teams are the A tier going into the Major 2 just based on online performance, and I think it's fair to say a team I'm going to put in the bottom of the D tier, and I think Paris Legion and LA Thieves right now kind of flip-flop depending on what is thrown at them. But I think the LA Thieves are D tier right now. Through Major 2 online qualifiers and heading into this major, they went 0-5. The team hasn't looked good in any mode across the board. They haven't looked good in their most dominant mode, hardpoint, and games 2 and 3 they haven't looked good as well. 2, 3, 5 their specialty. They can't win search and destroy. We saw a new addition to Bokage and Tuscan with the spawns change and the bomb site change. Seems like these guys can't figure it out, and I think their tournament runs are going to end here pretty early. An 0-5 stage is not good. You're going to be starting in losers bracket, and you're going to be playing at one of the hotter teams coming down from the winner's side. In the B tier, I'm going to go ahead and put New York. I think New York has looked extremely well since they made this roster change with the addition of Paul X for Clayster. They seems like these guys are finally having confidence, having fun, and I want to give a huge shout out to Neptune individually. He has stepped up tenfold for this team. He started to look like that all-star SMG, and going into the major, I think there's a team we got to look out for. They've been on a winning streak in hardpoint. They're on a winning streak in the CDL, taking down multiple different teams. They took out Paris, Minnesota Rocker, and now Toronto Ultra. They've been handling business, and they look really good going into the tournament. But I think that the recency of this team could potentially hurt them. I think that actually, the more that I talk about it, I'm going to put them ahead of Florida. I'm going to move Florida down to B tier. I think this is fair to say, in my opinion right now, based on how they've looked. I think New York has looked good enough to go into A tier, so I'm going to take that back and change that up a little bit on you guys the more I sit here and talk about it. For the B tier, for me, it's going to be Florida, and I think I'm going to put Seattle Surge. I think Seattle Surge has their work cut out for them as far as starting a winners bracket. I know they're going to be going up against Optic winners round 1, but this team's really good top to bottom. I like the roles. I like the players they have. They have Accuracy, Sib, Mac Melts, and now Pred. When Pred and Sib are on, they've looked really good. They can really take down anyone when these guys are playing at top of the line. So I'm excited to see what they can do on land. They've looked really good other than the last major on land. At the kickoff, they look solid. So I'm excited to see what they can do. Then in the C tier, I'm going to be putting the Minnesota Rocker and LAG. The reason for both of these teams is Minnesota Rocker hasn't looked really that great since their role change. Their only win coming up recently was against the LA Thieves with a reverse sweep fashion. But I think these guys got, like I said, their work cut out for them. This is their home major. They get to show what they can do. I think they're going to be starting in the losers bracket. It's going to be a hard tournament for them, but they got the crowds behind them. And I think they're, in my opinion, a bottom 12 team right now. Then on LAG's side, they started to look a lot better going into the league, but the reason I'm putting him here in the C tier is, if you guys didn't know, Spart is going to be filling in for Gunless. Gunless is not going to be competing this weekend because he is sick and will not be playing the entirety of the weekend. So if I'm curious to see kind of what LAG can do with a fill-in on obviously on such short notice. They're not going to have any practice with Spart, and it's going to be interesting to see. But this is, in my opinion, the tier list going into Major 2. Like I said, I'm excited to see what all these teams can do, and hopefully some of these bottom teams can prove me wrong, because it's always exciting to watch a loser bracket run. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to please smash that like button. Comment down below what other types of videos you guys would like to see. And until the next video, I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and make sure to check out the CDL Major this weekend. I'll catch you guys in the live streams. Take it easy, guys. Peace.